It is said that in the final days of a console's life, it will be visited by a specter of death, the harbinger of its doom. When it appears, there is no escape. The end is nigh, and none may escape its cry of fail. Yeah, I don't know what it is about Kirby. The little guy has a bad tendency to be the very last major release for Nintendo consoles. The Famicom, the Super Famicom, the Nintendo 64, the Wii. Okay, he seems to have shaken that off a bit lately. But it used to be, if Kirby came to your console, it was dead. Hoshi no Kirby marks the final game developed by HAL Laboratory for the Famicom. They've been with the system right from the beginning, developing many of the games that Nintendo published in the first few days of the system's life. HAL even developed ports of Atari games for Nintendo, which were used to try to get the American game company to distribute Nintendo's hardware in the US. A few years later, though, HAL's relationship with Nintendo seemed to sour. HAL was no longer making games for them, and instead making games for other publishers. Plus, they were publishing their own games from time to time. Strangely enough, the genre that HAL seemed to be best known for at the time was golf. They designed the original Nintendo golf game, and made several more golf games that we've seen on the Famicom. By 1990, HAL's fortunes were on the decline. A series of bad management decisions led to HAL being on the brink of closing. The most infamous of these was the development of Metal Slater Glory, a sci-fi adventure game that took several years to create and was the largest Famicom cartridge ever released. When that game bombed, they looked for someone to buy out the company, and Nintendo was willing to buy a controlling interest under one condition. Control of HAL Laboratory would fall on the programmer Satoru Iwata. During this takeover, Nintendo saw a promising project that was being developed by newcomer to HAL, Masahiro Sakurai. After some minor reworking, that game was published by Nintendo as Hoshi no Kirby on the Game Boy. A sequel was immediately planned, and it would become the Famicom's swan song, the final masterpiece, the ultimate expression of the 8-bit video game. A game so large and complex that it would be the second largest cartridge for the Famicom. I guess HAL liked them big. The name Kirby was taken from the lawyer for Nintendo of America, John Kirby, who had completely humiliated Universal in a lawsuit over the similarities between Donkey Kong and King Kong. Because it shares the same title as the original Game Boy game, the Famicom Hoshi no Kirby has a subtitle, Yume no Izumi no Monogatari, or The Story of the Fountain of Dreams. The plot of the game is that everyone's dreams emerge from the Fountain of Dreams. But one day, people stopped dreaming. It seems that Kirby's nemesis King Dedede had been hanging out around the fountain, and the star rods that gave the fountain its power are now all in the hands of King Dedede's buddies. Well, that was good enough reason for Kirby to go out and beat them all up. Hoshi no Kirby has 3 battery save slots, and on my copy, I've got 2 games that are at 100% already. Hoshi no Kirby has 39 stages spread across 7 worlds, and these stages are huge. Hoshi no Kirby is an enormous game. Even if you're rushing through it as fast as possible, it'll still take you close to 2 hours to fully beat the game. Hoshi no Kirby is a side-scrolling action game, and Kirby has the most expansive moveset of any character in a Famicom game. A jumps, you can double tap in a direction to run, you can hold down and hit A to slide kick into enemies. If you hold up, Kirby inflates and then you can float around at will. And when doing this, pressing B will exhale in a little puff that will hurt anything in front of you. Of course, Kirby's signature move is inhaling anything in front of him by holding down the B button. Anything you inhale like this can be spat back out as a star when you hit the B button. And starting in this game, Kirby gained an additional ability. Inhaling an enemy and pressing down can grant Kirby the same abilities that the enemy had. Some of them didn't really have any abilities, and so nothing will happen. but there's still around 20 different abilities that Kirby can pick up from enemies, and then use by hitting the B button. You can get information on what your current ability does by hitting the Start button. The special abilities are activated by hitting the B button, and the list is so large and varied that I really can't get into it in the video. I mean, you've got Sword, Cutter, Needle, Hammer, Flame, Burner, Wheel, UFO, Laser, High Jump, Body Slam, Throw, Stone, Mic, Crash, Sleep, Spark, Beam, and I am positive I am forgetting many others. Like Parasol, I forgot about that one. If you suck in 2 different kinds of enemies that can grant you an ability at the same time, then you get a mix where it rapidly cycles through every possible option. When you hit B again, or when the wheel stops, you get whatever was there. These abilities dramatically change the game. They're not just new ways for Kirby to attack. They also give you new ways to move, and possibilities for accessing secrets. Kirby with a hammer might be able to smash some posts, but Whirlwind Kirby can dash through the stages. Yeah, I forgot Whirlwind. You can play the game constantly switching abilities so you always have something new, or you could just hold on to something that you like. If you do want to drop an ability, you can hit the select button and it'll pop out of you as a star. Or you can get hit and it'll also pop out of you as a star. If you suck up that star and swallow it, then you'll recover that ability. There's also a few things you can collect on stages, like soda that will recover a little bit of health, the Mega Tomato which will give you full health, and extra lives. There are also lollipops that will make you invincible for a short time. If you reach the end of the stage, there's a small bonus game where you have to hit the A button to jump off the springing platform, and the higher you go, the more points you get. If you get all the way to number 1, then you'll get an extra life. Or, you could go up to number 7, and then 6, and so on, until you reach number 1. And if you manage to do that consecutively, you get 30 extra lives. That's one of those things that are easier said than done. When you complete a stage, a bit more of the world will open up, and reveal doors that will take you to the next stage, or to some bonus areas. There are also giant buttons in stages that if you manage to hit will reveal a bit more of the area as well. There are 3 types of bonus stages in Hoshi no Kirby. The first is a crane machine where they give you 2 chances to get a Kirby doll. The big ones are worth 2 extra lives, the small one is worth just 1. There's also a game where Kirby's rival King DDD throws eggs and bombs at him, and you have to hit A to open Kirby's mouth to only eat the eggs. Get enough eggs and you'll earn an extra life. Finally, there's a quick draw competition where you have to hit the B button as soon as the other character draws. The more characters you defeat, the more points you get, and eventually an extra life. There's quite a few bosses in Hoshi no Kirby. Many of them carried over from the previous game. All of the bosses, and mini-bosses for that matter, are kind enough to spit something out as an attack that Kirby can suck up and shoot back at them. For mini-bosses, after you defeat them, you can suck them up and gain their ability. Hoshi no Kirby auto-saves after you do anything, so your progress is always recorded, though if you turn off the game and come back to it, you're back to the default 5 lives. The stages themselves in Hoshi no Kirby are all really well designed, and many of them have some kind of distinctive gimmick, like flying against the airships in a strong wind, or these dark stages where, oh yeah, light. I forgot about light in that list of abilities. Some of the stages you might be able to just float over, but a lot of them won't let you get away with that. Over the years, Kirby has become one of Nintendo's major series, partially due to the flexibility of its main character. When you have a character that can do anything, and has a simple enough design that you could project anything onto, you wind up using him in a lot of stuff. And Nintendo would remake this particular Kirby game multiple times. I've seen descriptions that Hoshi no Kirby was the Famicom's last million-selling game, and I don't believe those are accurate. It might have been 1 million sales worldwide, but Hoshi no Kirby doesn't show up on my sales charts as having sold over 1 million copies. But even if it didn't break that boundary, it was still the last hit game on the Famicom. The final time that we can really say a Famicom game was successful. And of course that means that Hoshi no Kirby is a beloved classic in Japan. I mean, were you really expecting anything else there? Of course, I love this game too. It's the kind of thing that Famidaily exists for. 1,000 games ago, the Famicom had a pretty good, but not perfect port of Donkey Kong. And I've watched it evolve step by step, inch by inch, over 10 years, until there was Hoshi no Kirby. Every technical advancement, every grasp of how to improve visual design, every time someone tried a new gameplay technique. I could end Famidaily here because everything else is a step back. I'm not going to. I mean, we only have 38 more cartridges to go. And even though some of those games are very good, none of them are the triumph that Hoshi no Kirby is.